Hey guys, welcome back to another Late Night Strange. And tonight we are going to be talking about cryptids that turn out to be real. For those of you who like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to drop a comment down in the comment section. Let's get started. First on the list is going to be the Komodo dragon. Before the discovery of Komodo dragons in 1910, rumor has it that there was this land crocodile creature that was reported to be over 20 feet long. Even stories coming back to the mainland about these giant lizards that live on Komodo in Indonesia were laughed at by respectable scientists. It wasn't until 1910 when Stein van Hansbroek caught and killed a 6-foot Komodo dragon and brought it back to the mainland. With just the dead carcasses on his hand, explorer W. Douglas Burden wasn't happy with just a dead specimen, so he decided to travel to the island to capture a live one. In 1926, he did just that. He went to Komodo and captured not just one, but 2 live Komodo dragons and a few dead specimens. The dragons were then displayed at the Bronx Zoo and inspired Murray C. Cooper to write the 1933 classic King Kong. As great as their legend is and the discovery of the Komodo dragons are shockingly few in numbers. In fact, on its natural habitat of Komodos, Flores Islands, and nearby islands. So the dragon species only total up to only about 4,000 to 5,000 members. Loss in habitats by pretty much encroachment of locals and tourists threatens to decrease the Komodo's populations even further. In addition, poachers have killed many deers in the Komodo's habitat, one of its main staple foods, so the Indonesia government is making an effort to protect the species for the future. The discovery of the Komodo dragons fascinated the heck out of me, because imagine going to this island and coming back with stories of this huge giant lizard that can eat you whenever you want. If somebody told me that, I would probably laugh at them too. Next on the list, we have the platypus. For those of you who's never seen a platypus, it would be easy to believe that it was a Photoshop of a duck, otter, and beaver all put together. But for those of us who knows about the platypus, believe it or not, this animal once upon a time was believed to be a cryptid. Naturalists, scientists, and most Europeans in the 18th centuries didn't believe such a creature could exist. So in 1798, the second government of New South Wales, by the name of Captain John Hunter, sent a pelt and a sketch of this platypus that was discovered to the European community. And after the European community saw the sketches and the pelt of this claimed to be platypus, they were absolutely convinced that it was a hoax and the pelt was actually made by an Asian taxidermist. So Captain John Hunter was trying to convince all these scientists and zoologists in the European community. He was like, you know what? Why don't you guys just take the scissor to the pelt to find any stitches? So that's exactly what they did. They took the scissors to the pelt, try to find any stitches, but to their discovery, they didn't find any stitches at all. Several years later, after many expeditions, the platypus was proven to be real. So let me get into the details of the platypus a little bit. So the platypus is pretty much a furry Australian mammal that lives in rivers. It has the feet of an otter and the tail of a beaver. So far, nothing that strange. Then, you look at the head, it also has a bill of a duck, unlike any other mammals. I bet a lot of people didn't know this, but the strangest part about the platypus is the fact that it lays eggs. So only 5 living mammals out there do so. And the platypus is one of those creatures. On top of this, platypus is also venomous. So the male platypus produces venoms from the glands attached to its ankle spurs. It is believed that these are used against other males, especially during mating seasons. Next on the list, we have the giant squid. So many people still consider the giant squid to be a cryptid. Similar to most cryptids, which tends to live in habitats that are difficult for humans to find, giant squids live in the depths of the ocean. So the first image of the giant squid was taken in 2004 by researchers in Japan, and in 2006 by scientists from Japan of National Science Museum, which they called a live 24-foot female giant squid. Every few months after, there's also new reportings of dead giant squids washing up ashore. With all these evidence, people still consider this giant squid to be a hoax, but the scientific evidence says otherwise. There's also been evidence of these sperm whales washing up shore with these huge battle scars and gash marks on his head. And know that these sperm whales dive up to 1,000 feet just to feed on these giant squids. Scientists have also found huge remains of these giant squids in the belly of the sperm whales, so the theory of giant squids existing is pretty terrifying if you ask me. Especially back in the days where they report these giant krakens to attack ships. Is there a possibility of a giant squid being that big? I truly believe so. It is a fact that we know more about space than our own ocean floors. The first recorded discovery of the most intact giant squid carcass was actually in 1870s. However, it was into the last decade or so that we managed to take photos of a live specimen, so pretty much cementing the giant squid status as a former cryptid. Next on our list is the sea serpent cryptid, also known as the oarfish. Stories of dreadful sea serpents that dwells in the oceans dates back thousands of years. Even the Bible makes references of gigantic beasts called leviathans that roams the ocean depths looking for prey. Much like the case of the giant squid, for a long time, scientists thought that these sea monsters were too huge to be real. Cryptozoologists, however, believe that many of these sightings of these historic sea monsters are cases of real animals being misidentified. And the oarfish, being a very rare creature, perhaps might be the culprit of this. The oarfish is a long, bony fish with an elongated body that has been found to grow at least 56 feet long, 17 meters pretty much. They are found in the oceans all over the world and is usually live in the depths of the ocean. It only comes up and get washed upon shore when it's dying. That is why in Japanese folklore, the oarfish is also known as the messenger from the sea god palace. Local legends also claim that the oarfish appears just before natural disaster, like the tsunami or earthquakes. According to National Geographic, it also has gained a reputation as a doomsday hairbringer of sorts. So I just want to give you guys a little context of how rare these oarfish are. Even though some of these oarfish were washed upon shore and were found pretty much deceased, a lot of people speculate that these were dragons or these were early depictions of sea serpents, but the first live recording of oarfish wasn't filmed until 2001, just showing you how rare these creatures are. And like I mentioned before, the only time when you see them on the surface is actually when they're dying. So next on the list, we have the gorilla. Back then, most European explorers thought that gorillas were monster-like. And the first attribute sightings of a gorilla by a non-African was made in the 5th century BC by a Greek explorer known as Hanno. Most scientists today believe Hanno was describing either chimpanzees or bamboos from his account. However, this interpreter called the creatures that he saw gorillae. Another explorer by the name of Andrew Patel recounted seeing human-like monsters visit his campfire every morning after he left for the day. Yet the gorillas remained cryptids until 1847 when Thomas Savage found gorilla bones in Liberia. He, alongside with Harvard anatomist Jeffrey Weinman, wrote a formal description of the new species, calling it gorilla. A decade later, anthropologist Paul Du Chaillu hunted live gorillas in order to obtain specimens. Another species of gorilla, also known as the mountain gorilla, remained a cryptid until 1902. A German captain by the name of Robert von Behring first identified one. So today we know that there's an estimation about 1,063 of these mountain gorillas left in the wild. Next on our list, we have the kangaroos. Yes, it's hard to believe that kangaroos were once cryptids. The first description of the kangaroo was actually made by Amerigo Vespucci in 1499. When he was traveling along the southern coast of Australia, he described it was this monstrous beast with the head of a fox, hands of a human, and tail of a monkey, and a bag that's used to carry its young. In 1629, Francesco Palsier captured a kangaroo, but it died on his voyage. It wasn't until Sir Joseph Banks rediscovered the kangaroo on the Captain Cook's voyage in 1770 that the kangaroo changed the enjoyable myth to an actual species. So let's dig a little bit deeper into this cryptid thing. So there's also a phantom kangaroo, which is, this giant kangaroo that was seen pretty much all over the United States. So during a tornado in 1899 in Richmond, Wisconsin, a woman saw a kangaroo leaping across her backyard. In 1934, a giant kangaroo supposedly killed and ate police dogs in Hamburg, Tennessee. In 1978, in Waukesha, Wisconsin, two men took a blurry picture of a kangaroo they saw in a bush. In 2000, there was 4 sightings of a 6-foot kangaroo eating leaves in Lewisham, London. So is there another kangaroo cryptid out there that we don't know about? Or is this just an escaped kangaroo from a zoo or a pet or just somebody's kangaroo running around town? I don't know, but I found that kind of interesting while digging into the subject a little bit further. So yeah, there's also this giant kangaroo cryptid that's running around out there that's also known as the phantom kangaroo. Next on the list, we have the okapi, also known as the forest giraffe. So the okapi is a blend between a zebra, donkey, deer, and antelope, but yet is closest to giraffes. Europeans in the 18th and 19th centuries called this animal the African unicorn. So Africans knew that the okapi really did exist, but since these animals pretty much inhabits the interior forests in Central Africa, the okapis were rarely seen and were extremely hard to find. They were pretty much classified as a cryptid for many years. It wasn't until in 1901 when Sir Harry Johnston found an okapi skeleton and skin, he then sent those to the British Museum where it was then classified as a new species. Kind of reminds me, there's been this creature that's been seen for so many years and the locals know about it, but us as pretty much the modern world haven't really acknowledged its existence yet. Well, don't that remind you of something? Next on the list, we have the Bonegezu. So the Bonegezu is one of the ancestral spirits of the Mani people in the Western Papua New Guinea. So its ties to the Western world or the Western Papua New Guinea mythologies made the Bonegezu a cryptid for decades. And it wasn't until the 1980s that Tim Flannery, an Australian scientist, took the first picture of a Bonegezu. Mr. Flannery identified the animal as a tree-dwelling marsupial that looked like a tiny man. It has black and white fur and even walks around on 2 legs. Unfortunately, today, the Bonegezu is on the endangered species list. Last on the list, we have the chupacabra. While mostly this chupacabra is actually just a dog or a coyote suffering from mange, it will certainly be a resemblance to a mythical blood-sucking creature. The chupacabra was first reported in 1995 in Puerto Rico, where they had blamed for attacks on goats, sheep, and other domestic animals, supposedly leaving uneaten carcasses that were drained of blood. Early reports of this chupacabra describe a creature that stood upright and resembles a large reptilian kangaroo-like creature with huge red eyes. So the legend of the chupacabra has terrorized rural communities throughout America for decades. The beast described as resembling a small bear or a dog-like animal with a row of spikes extending from his neck to the base of his tail has been said to be spotted in Puerto Rico, Mexico, and throughout the United States. Biologists say that the chupacabra is an urban legend, but numerous accounts insist some type of monster is drawing blood from livestock. So even though this chupacabra might just been a misidentification of an animal or a canine, this cryptid really, or this cryptid or animal really did live in people's hearts and really did instill fear in a lot of people's lives, so there are plenty more animals out there that has been misidentified back then, where they call these creatures something else, and it turned out they were just this. So one of them were the rhinoceros. People believe they were unicorns back then. They weren't really labeled as a cryptid, but also with the narwhals, I believe there's stories of Vikings, hunting them and using their horns and selling them off as unicorn horns, and also stories about dolphins and manatees and anything like that being mermaids. But these are some of the few animals that I would like to touch on that were actually labeled as cryptids that turned out to be, a real creature. But before I leave today, I just want to show you guys a picture of one of the rarest animals in the world, known as the sola. The sola was discovered in May of 1990 during a joint survey carried out by the Ministry of Forestry of Vietnam and the WWF in north central Vietnam. So the team was doing a survey in the area when they walked into a hunter's home and found a skull with unusual long straight horns and knew it was something extraordinary. They were absolutely right, because the find proved to be one of the first large mammals new to science in more than 50 years, and one of the most spectacular zoological discovery of the 20th century. Due to the sola's elusive nature and rarity, and the rugged remote density forest terrain in which it lives, precise population estimation have not been possible. Based on the information from local villagers, the status of this mammal ranges from only to a few hundred that survive in the dense forests of Laos. The sola is listed as critically in danger, so the last stop before extinction. That just shows you how rare this creature is. But I just want to show you guys one animal that has been very elusive for a very long time and just been recently discovered. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and like I said before, if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. Drop a comment down below in the comment section, and I'll see you guys all on the next episode of The Late Night Strange. Goodbye, guys, and stay spooky.